All right, new EJ's rant of the week. It is the new rant of the week. I'm recording this on Sunday afternoon, around noon, April 5th, 26 rather. What a weekend so far we've had. As you guys know, this week is typically for my family, my wife, my kids, it is the most special week of the year for us. As of course we just actually celebrated my wife and I's 15-year wedding anniversary 2 nights ago, and yesterday we celebrated my youngest son's 9th birthday, and we had a long day. Like we went out with a bunch of friends. We went to a breakfast, trampoline park, movies, other friend's house, and we spent a chunk. What was it, at least 12 hours out the house. So we are exhausted. I'm exhausted today on the show, but we press on. And we close this special week, of course, with my oldest son, Eli. Of course, you heard him on the Conversations with My Sons podcast we've done on this feed now for the last month or so. And this one's a little more special because Eli, my oldest son, is going to turn 13. He is officially a teenager in a matter of days. And you know, the reality of that has hit me a lot harder in recent days than I thought it would. The fact that I have a child now that is literally 5 years from being an adult, a tax-paying adult, is actually quite mind-boggling to me, actually. And I've been reflecting a lot about how fast parenthood has gone for me. And I'm not saying it's let me just say this much. It's a lot fast. When people say it goes quickly, growing up, I hear them like, well, I mean, you say that. It's all cliche. No, it's true. It's true. Because what have I said through the years of this show? When you're a parent with a family and bills and you have a career and all these things that are the routine of your daily life, your weekly life, your yearly life, your routine, the day after day, at some point you get lost. You're in that rabbit hole about supporting your family and doing the things that your routine allows you to do, that years pile up, days pile up, weeks pile up, everything piles up. Before you know it, your kids are bigger than you realize, and all of a sudden your oldest kid is now 13 years old. That shit is crazy. So I've been reflecting a lot about these 13 years and going back to the beginning. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, people look at their their firstborn and the days became parents and stuff, and look at it as positive. And obviously that's a great thing. If it was a positive experience for you on a personal level, then absolutely, God bless you, and I'm with you. But I gotta tell you, for me on a personal end, having my first child in 2013 was actually a lot more stressful than I probably admitted. That was a very, very tough time for me on a personal end because there's a lot of things going on at that time, transitions I was doing at that time that was very, very big for me, big time for me especially. I started a new, pretty much a new career, same place of employment, but also a new position at my job, which I've been doing since then, which was fresh. My wife and I. My wife we decided to keep her home because we realized daycare, even back then, daycare was so expensive that it wasn't even worth her working. It wasn't even worth it because like all the money she'd make on working, well, go to daycares. What's the fucking point of her working? Just stay home. And also, I also have been a believer for, since I was a child, that if you can find a way to keep a parent home, at least for the first couple of years, I'm not saying you have to do this, but if you could do that in ways to help raise your child and start those building blocks early, I'm a fan of that. I'm always been a fan of that. So we did that with my oldest son. I was the one working. So doing a new position in my job, also the fact that I'm now the sole income for my family at the time, it was scary for me. It was scary. Yeah, I know. I'm an adult. I'm 30 at the time. I'm 33 years old. So yeah, I get that. But it doesn't change the fact that when you change dynamics that swiftly, that quickly, and now all the pressure, at least from that end, is on you. And I'm not saying my wife took on a lot with raising a baby, also especially, and look, and by God, she did an incredible job. But there are different pressures that she faced in that as well, and there's also pressures that I faced. I couldn't afford to, I had to make sure I'm performing at my job to the best of my ability to make sure I'm making an income for my family. That shit's scary. We don't have a second income at the time to help you baseline that. That's very scary. Very scary. And that now you have your own family. Now we've gone from, being just a single human being who just, does what he wants, lives whatever he wants, hey, mom, dad, whatever. Then you have a girlfriend. Your girlfriend, you get serious, you get married, and then you have children. Having to be responsible for not only for yourself and for your wife, but also for another life, a small life, a life that does not know anything at the time. And you're raising that. That's a lot of pressure. And I got to tell you, that first 2 years of fatherhood for me was very challenging. I will say, for me, the one thing that kept me sane, that kept me focused, that kept me balanced was this podcast. This podcast at the time was in the second or third year. And I at least had that to keep me balanced. Because once you're in that, and look, you got to be a parent to understand this. Once you're in that hole and you're doing that, you're in it. Like you are just stuck. You're in that hole, and that is your only focus. And sometimes it wears on your mental health. It certainly wore on my mental health. It certainly wore on my physical health. At the time, I didn't know that until years later. But it was a tough time, and even then, on a personal for me too. Also, we had family members of family members that were not on the same page with us at the time, that we struggled with. Which we had to put some distance to, unfortunately. And then worse off, my wife and I at the time, and I might have shared this one time in the past, but my wife and I at the time were actually, we were in a rut. We almost separated. We almost got divorced. We had considered just separating and just ending things 1 year in for myriad of reasons. So it was a massive struggle. So for me, when I look back at those early years of being a parent, it's not the most positive either, because it was very challenging. But I do believe that those early years, did ground me, did actually gave me better perspective. And it actually, in the end, made me a better human being. It made my marriage stronger, actually. It made me as a better father. It made me a better husband. It made me a better person in general. You don't, people coast through life, and I don't think just coast through life. I think we all have challenges, and some bigger, some big smaller. And for me, that was a moment for me where I had to make decisions that were tough at the time, but I did them for the sake of my family, for the sake of my mental health, for the sake of the bigger picture. And now we come here 13 years later as being a parent, and now a parent of a teenager and a kid who, while he challenges me to no end, he is a phenomenal human being. Doing very good in school. He's slowly maturing and whatnot. He's seeing the big picture. He's also a guy with a kid with a lot of personality. You see him on the show. He's a big kid. He's a phenomenal kid, and I love the fact that him and I, especially too, we got a lot closer. See, one of the things I struggled with back then as well, another thing I've never shared with us, is that, and maybe because of the fact that I worked more and I wasn't in. That's not an excuse though, because my work schedule was still not. I worked, but I had a schedule where it was still conducive to be involved as a parent, and yet I did feel for a long time disconnected with my child because of the fact that because of all the things going around me, I leaned on other things outside of the family to not bad things, like the podcast and just trying to keep myself sane, sports, all those things that keep me sane to balance things out. But at the end of the day, I my one regret back then is I wish I'd put my foot down on certain decisions I made. I also wish I was a little more involved with my son. Like, I was involved, obviously, but I wasn't. But there was a little bit of disconnect. Like, my son and I now are much closer than we were, obviously, when growing up. Now there's a tale of two different situations here with how I handle with my kids. So my oldest son, I felt disconnected with because of the stresses there. My second kid, my youngest kid, Logan, complete opposite startup point for me. I was heavily involved with him. Him and I were inseparable those first couple of years as a baby. I was very much to the point where my wife decided to go back to work. My wife felt very comfortable at that point to go back to work full time. So at that point, she said, well, you're involved now. You're way more involved, and the kid loves you and he's attached to you. So your schedule is now conducive to where I can still work now. So we ended up starting working on both ends, and we've been here ever since. So I look back at those early years as a parent, and while it was challenging, we came out that fire, we came out stronger, and I'm proud of my kid. Dude, it's crazy. I was telling my son yesterday in the car, we were driving, around with the family, and I said, think about this. In 2 years, you're eligible to get your permit. In 3 years, you are being able to drive. In an actual year and a half, or year on months, you'll be in high school. Things are changing and changing fast, and we got to be prepared for that. And I'm trying to continue to have myself prepared mentally, physically, spiritually for all these changes coming up. These things are very, very challenging. These things are they come like a bat out of hell. It just hits you like, oh shit, how old are you now? What the fuck? And that's what I'm going through now. But I will say, to our credit, as a family, we are very tight-knit. We're very close. We're not perfect, but we damn sure are going to get the job done, and come hell high water, we will prevail no matter what and make things the way they should. So again, to my oldest son, Eli Christian, happy birthday. Happy 13th to you, and hope you enjoy your day. So that is it here on this week's Rant of the Week. Just had to get off my chest, think about the world at large and myself and my kids and everything going on in my life, and I'm grateful to have this Rant of the Week here on the Earnestly Speaking Podcast. I am on X at EJ Christian 7. Until the next episode, enjoy all the content coming down the pike this week. We got a lot of good shows coming up. And until next one, we talk to you guys soon. Love you guys. Whatever. Can't talk today. Okay, see ya.